Good to go. All right. Okay. Right. Good afternoon, all. I'd like to welcome those viewing us online. I would like to call our May 15th board meeting to order at 1:31. Okay. I would like to begin with our opening prayer. Go ahead.
In the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Heavenly Father, we come before you today in humility and faith. We thank you for all you have given us and the many blessings in our lives. We ask for your guidance and strength. Show us the way and fill us with courage and wisdom. Help us to remember your love and grace and to be faithful in our service to you. Give us the patience and understanding to face life's challenges with grace. We ask these things in your name. Amen. St. Thomas Aquinas.
Thank you, Pastor Bird. Now I'd like to call on Pastor Miller to say our acknowledgements.
Thank you. We are a party to Treaty 6, and as such, we wish to acknowledge that the land on which we gather is Treaty 6 territory and a traditional meeting ground for many Indigenous peoples. We recognize the diversity of First Nations who have, at one time, lived across the territory, as well as the presence of the Métis Nation.
Thank you. We have no public forum. We will go to the approval of the agenda. Any additions? Okay, Trustee, that's your order.
Thank you. I'd like to add the advocacy consultant.
Okay, and we'll put that under action item 5.6, please. Okay, 5.6. Yeah, go ahead, Trustee Miller.
Thank you. I would like to add in-camera session as a new number 7. Under policy 5.6, other topics that a majority of the trustees present with should be held in private in the public interest.
Okay, so that means committee reports, that's item number 7.
No, as a new number 7.
Yeah, new numbers, yeah. New number 7. Okay. Then ask for the approval of the agenda then as amended. Go ahead.
I move that the board approve the agenda as amended.
Thank you. Any discussion? I see none. I will call the question. All in favor? Aye. That is now carried. Minutes of the agenda last meeting. Minutes of the last meeting. Okay, I would like to ask someone to move that. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. I move that the board approve the minutes of the regular meeting held April 17th, 2024 as circulated.
Thank you. You all have seen the minutes and reviewed it. Any discussion? I see none. I'd like to call the question. All in favor? And that is carried. So we have the board priorities there for our review and consulting when needed. That is staying on until 2027. Okay. Board chairs report. Any comments or questions on board chairs report? All right. Madam Chair, you are the number 4 there, you are the artwork, the walk through the artwork. Were the students there? Did you take any pictures? This is student picture.
I'm sorry, what was that? I couldn't get that, Henry.
When you went to the witness through art,
Oh, yes.
you take any pictures with the students?
Yes, we did. I
Okay,
thought I'd sent them out.
I saw good pictures. Did
It was
you?
a wonderful morning. And we're very proud of our students. Marilyn was there because the 2 students were from St. Augustine's. And their picture was amazing. All of them.
I'm glad they were there and you were able to attend. Thank you. Okay, we'll go to the superintendent's report. I see a lot of yellows. Okay. Okay, any questions or comments on the SUPS report for the month? Any? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. I have 3 questions this time, so just let me know if I need to stop in between them. The first question is in regards to number 2, building effective relationship, the 10th bullet. It speaks to curriculum changes, challenges, and strategies. So I'm just wondering if you might be able to share the challenges or positive stories that can be told so far with regards to the curriculum, the new curriculum implementation items that have been put in place to support staff and ultimately our students.
That's a long loaded question. Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll ask Assistant Superintendent Cardinal to answer that question.
So essentially the challenges, some of the curriculum has been maybe above what students are capable of at that age level. So the positive part of that is that our teachers are very creative in their approaches. They've come together, so the Director of Curriculum and Staff Development has brought our K-6 teachers together. So just kindergarten, just grade 1, etc., brought them together. They have looked at various pieces of the curriculum. They've created unit plans with backwards by design, which is keeping the end in mind, the outcomes in mind. They have created assessments around them. And they've also looked at infusing faith into those lessons and units. So those are definitely the positive stories. I guess some of the challenges have been, like, let's say if you're implementing in grade 4, but let's say the grade before you has not done the implementation, then that carryover of skills perhaps isn't always there. So that is a bit of a challenge. So that's what we have thus far. I guess also we have a repository, I was gonna say the wrong word, a repository of these unit plans and assessments and resources and links, etc., that they can access. So it's in a Google Classroom. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Trustee, I have a question that may be related. So same building effective relation, who developed the narrative writing rubrics and rationale for the kindergarten to grade 6 program that is at the Edmonton Call Center? Who developed that?
It was groups of teachers and directors, consultants that came together under the umbrella of the Edmonton Regional Learning Consortium. That's who did it.
Thank you. All right, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Under number 6, ensuring First Nation, Métis, Inuit education for all students, referring to bullets 2 and 3. So we're to understand that we have recently received Jordan's funding. We're been approved for funding under Jordan's principle. And I'm just wondering, was that for last year? Like, was that, applied for last year, approved this year, being just approved now, or was it for the upcoming 24 year? And it also mentions between the 2 bullets that there's Indigenous funding separate from Jordan's principle. So I'm just wondering where that comes from.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the Jordan's principal funding was approved for a year and a half. The other funding that is mentioned there, you recall that our Indigenous education coach position is vacant. So Assistant Superintendent Cardinal spearheaded a process whereby schools could submit proposals to use money to enhance that portfolio and to meet those goals in the education plan. So all schools did submit their requests, and those monies were then portioned out according to their projects to meet those goals. So those are things that are happening between now and the end of the school year.
And just to comment on Jordan's principle, that is a different pot of money over and above to bridge gaps that is noted within the Indigenous learning, for lack of this journey, right? So then it's a little bit very broad, to support that journey. So go ahead.
The Jordan's principal funding is actually federal funding that we apply for. And the other piece of that is that we've changed, or they've asked us to change the process so that what happened was that we had different schools applying, and they asked us to combine all of our schools that we were requesting Jordan's principal funding under one application. So I coordinated that with the principals and then applied for that. That was end of January-ish. We did not receive funding until March. So the funding was from March to June, and then September to June of next year.
And I will understand that because it's a very new initiative, right? So as they're working along, trying to get these timelines, so the money is there as the students are ready to go.
Yes.
The end of the year when you receive the money. Thank you. Go ahead.
I do have another question, but just a quick comment on that through the chair, through the superintendent. Thank you for the reminder on where some of that funding comes from. So. My next question is under number 8. Apologies. Supporting effective governance. Bullet number 7. We had sent a letter regarding Bill 18 implications for our board, and I'm just wondering if there's an update, any responses yet? Expected response.
So unless it's just come in today, I'm not aware of a response to that letter at this time.
Thank you, and I have a couple of questions here. So, Mr. Chair, under modeling commitment to professional learning, the third bullet. So we completed a psychological safety the trainer session. How many trainers do we have in the division?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So that's a recent training that maybe I'll have Assistant Superintendent Cardinal speak to. I believe it was last week. Correct?
Yes, it was just last week. So the Director of Student Services, Chris Pirro, was trained. as well as the division wellness coordinator was trained as well. So there's 2 that are trained and trainers, and then they will be working on this as indicated in the education plan with schools.
Thank you. And I have one more question. Leading learning, bullet 6. Led collaborative sessions to support teachers in understanding and implementing the new curriculum, focusing on language arts, science, and mathematics for grades 4 to 6. So my question will be, what are the successes and challenges during this implementation?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll ask Assistant Superintendent Cardinal to speak to that.
As I indicated before, the successes are the teachers and their willingness to work on the curriculum and to collaborate. They do appreciate being able to work together. So those professional development sessions aren't just to sit and get, but they are time also to work and to create resources which are in Google Classrooms for all of the grades up to grade 6. And again, the challenges I had mentioned earlier about, so I would say that those are the major ones.
All right, so trustees, you've heard that. So what can we do to help at this time? Because we know this curriculum is just unfolding.
With curriculum implementation?
Yeah.
Good question.
If I could,
Yeah,
Yeah,
please.
go ahead.
Speak to that.
Advocacy, yeah, what advocacy?
the province does support us financially
Okay.
with that implementation, so I think, that's a good news story that you can speak to when you are asked, or if politicians ask, how's it going with that? We do receive money for teacher training
Training, good.
and for resources. So we are appreciative of that. It pays for some of our sub time and the ability for teachers to get together. So when you ask, I think we are happy with the support we're getting in the implementation from the province in that respect.
Wonderful. Good to know that we are supporting the process. Any other question? Okay. See none. All right. Secretary Treasurer's reports. See, we can go to the bank. Any questions, Secretary Treasurer, about this report? Go ahead, Trustee Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This question isn't necessarily related directly to the report, but when we look at transportation and it talks about registration, I'm wondering if the board would be interested or willing to officially ask for information in regards to those that have registered for the 24-25 school year that will require the transportation that falls within the new distance guidelines. And what the funding for that specifically breakdown looks like. Because there is a little bit of a difference between the funding guide and kind of what is being discussed regarding those new distances. Because the date has been pushed to 2025 for official implementation. So I'm just trying to get a sense of if the rest of the board would be interested in receiving that information for our knowledge, to better understand the impact of this change.
Trustees, is that something you're all interested in? Information? No?
Yeah.
Okay, hearing us, Michael? Something? Okay. All right. Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, would the board wish to have that forwarded as a memo or communication, or would you rather see it at the next board meeting?
as a memo should be fine in my regards, but can see it in board meeting. This is information for our knowledge to understand this as it's unfolding.
Whatever the will of the board is,
At the next meeting.
You want it at the board meeting? Okay, you want it where?
Just in the memo.
That memo was
How
fine
about
too,
you?
doesn't matter.
Memo, fine, okay.
Okay, memo is-
Yeah. When you are able to, please, yeah, with the superintendent. Okay,
Just to add as well, just to say, that process is a two-process item. It involves the registration of students or transportation, which officially it ends at the end of June. Official end of this, but we know our registration will carry into September as well. So very good number, and then our application for that funding, the deadline is end of October. That's when we submit that application for the funding based on the transportation that we have. So given those timelines, we in June, yes, we can just provide that those will be final. Just for information. So,
okay. Thank you. Go ahead.
If I'd like to amend my request or suggestion to the board then, seeing that this information is fresh on our minds, given the information that has just been shared with us, I'm wondering if we could actually move that instead of a memo to an actual not presentation, but a discussion at the September meeting would be better suited to fully understand that information and the impact. Versus a memo in June before we have all the information.
Okay. Yeah, based on that explanation, I will agree. We want to have a very good understanding. So not a half story before we get a full story. And now, under one of your, sticking with transportation, how many parents attended the parents' transportation meeting? That's somewhere, okay. Yeah, did you have enough parents at that meeting?
okay, it wasn't a meeting as such, it's just periods that parents are pausing. It's not a particular, it wasn't a particular.
Oh,
it wasn't an arranged meeting.
Oh, okay.
But
Okay, then good. And then another question, I see bullet number, secretariat, bullet number 3. This my budget file system. Is this something new?
no,
No, my budget file system, you know?
okay, Mr. Chair, this is the system that we use for our budgeting, and it's not a new system, it's new to me.
Okay.
Okay,
Because I see you attended training, and I've never heard about that.
Yeah, okay, no, it's a system that is the division.
For budget. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
I have a question with regards to facility management. The first point, just what remedial work is that related to?
Okay. It's an Anthony, what is happening is that there is the shifting of the ground where there are some cracks on some part of the walls. And that's the remedial work that we are working with engineers. We are working with engineers to remediate, to make sure that at least they lift the part of the floor and addressing the problem.
Follow-up question. Is there a timeline for that?
We are now working with a particular timeline, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I think we were struggling to get the proper way to get this this issue addressed. So we have been going back and forth with the engineers, but I think we now have a handle of that. And our based on the plan that we have, something that will be done.
All right, thank you. Any other question for Our Secretary Treasurer. Thank you. We will then move into our action items. Policy 16. Recruitment and selection of personnel. I will ask someone to put the motion on the floor.
That the
Yes.
board approve policy 16, recruitment and selection of personnel, third and final reading as presented, and that the new policy now be in effect.
All right. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, if I could, I'd like to make an amendment to the motion. Not amending the wording of the motion, but policy changes. And just removing
Which line?
5.2,
5.2.
removing the strike through from local trustees. Removing the strike through throughout the entirety of local trustees may choose to serve as additional members on the advisory panel at their discretion. And then adding the wording for the hiring of principals specifically.
Okay. So to your request, you want the strike through from local?
I want to remove the strike through from local
Yeah.
to discretion and add the wording with regards to the hiring principles.
It's like a very big change in the intent of the policy. Am I wrong on that?
It doesn't change the intent, it reverses the proposed change.
Well, those on the policy committee, go on the
They're on.
Maryland and yourself. So you were there before these changes, right? Okay. So I wonder why, yeah, that wasn't discussed at your meeting there. Okay, so that is the change requested by trustee. To add on, do you all get it? Do we? Everybody sees that and the addition to it? Okay.
I'm not clear on what Michael wants to take out. I'm sorry, it's just a little bit hard to hear.
So 5.2,
5.2.
You want to remove the strikeout?
yeah, so there's a strikeout from, it'd be the
Local.
third line in 5.2. It says local trustees may choose to serve as additional members on the advisory panel at their discretion. So that strike through would be removed. And then there would be additional wording at the very end of that sentence, which would be with regards to principal hiring.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Leonard. Trustee Taiwo, did you get it now?
Oh, can you put it on the screen as to what the new thing would be, or because
You.
you said additional things would be added, and I'm not sure what you meant by what was added.
Here,
That's 1 second here.
Can we hear the reasoning for the amendment? Well, maybe we're trying to get it on the screen.
That's 1 second. So trustee Lennon, yeah, if you can add some context to whatever you need to.
So the amendment's accepted.
So the amendment would change it to so that a local trustee would be on the hiring board for a principal?
Yeah,
Yes.
Correct.
at their discretion.
Yes, at their discretion.
That was already there, right? Then with the new amendment, it was,
Yeah, we took it out, which was what I had agreed with.
okay, so then he wants it back. Yeah, so that's what, okay, so let's put it out and then once you all see it, and then ask for the acceptance or not. Then have it.
Are we going to vote on the amendment first and then go back to the?
Well, we have to have discussion first. A motion's been put forward, and then we get to debate it, and then vote on it. So we need to debate first.
But the fact, the motion itself states the addition into the context of the motion. So it into the. Okay, go ahead.
So I'll speak to the amendment. I believe that local areas need a local voice for the hiring of this particular position. Because it's an important position for the members of that community. I've had discussions with some members in our local school boards, Wild Rose specifically, and they say that they do allow quite a bit of consultation from the locales. Now, we do have a clause that was put in there that trustees and representatives of school and faith community will be invited to provide feedback on the principal profile in 5.1. But I don't believe that that is what our communities would want, especially our smaller communities. I don't think that they want to just be able to have input on the profile. They would want some local representation on these boards because it is a matter that's going to be affecting a local area. And who better, in my opinion, than the locally elected trustee to have the option, and they can choose not to, but to have the option to be able to maintain sitting on these panels. So that's my thoughts on the change.
Okay, we've all heard that. Any comments from Maureen?
Thank you. So, trustee, would the trustees have to be invited to be in the interview? Couldn't just show up.
Yeah, they would have to be notified.
Yeah, like we'd have to be invited, right?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate that this amendment has been made. This has been something that I have been thinking about for a while since our last meeting where we saw the second reading. As much as I understand the governance levels of hiring a principal and why this the proposed change was provided to us, and I understand that, and as governance minded as I am, this one still sticks with me because I agree with the mover of the amendment that it is something where it is of benefit that a local trustee has an understanding of what is happening in their local schools, and you are in an advisory role. You don't get to speak, you don't get to vote necessarily during the actual interviews, but it provides that unity the relationship, the understanding of what's happening, and I guess a level of accountability without getting your fingers necessarily into it. So it's just some of my first comments on this, that I appreciate the amendment being brought forward today.
Okay, trustee Tazwood,
I feel that, I think it's important that we be part of the, certainly part of the assistant superintendent and secretary treasurer, but as far as principals and vice principals, no, I personally, I do not feel that I should be a part of that. I think that that's better known within the school and within the administration to look at who's going to be principal or vice principal. So I disagree with this. Thank you.
okay, thank you. Trustee,
Yeah, I disagree. I don't think we need to be a part of it. We have our superintendent that knows the staff and incoming people that have applied. They have the knowledge of what we need in our schools. I like the idea maybe to sit to hear what that principal has to offer our school. But as far as being a part of the committee and stuff, I don't feel the need to be.
okay. So this is the final and the third and the final reading to that, and this is the amendment that is proposed. Okay, so if we can then vote on this amendment, please, and I'll like state that. Okay, so I'll call the question on the amendment. And we'll start with you, Mr. Moore.
Are we doing a recorded, sorry, point of order, are we doing a recorded vote?
Somebody requested that.
Oh, I'm just wondering why we're going around the table and not show hands.
Sorry, my error. Okay. I know Michael have always wanted to record a vote, so all right. Okay, so based on the amendment, can I see show by hand? All in favor of the amendment? Okay, 1 and 2, 3. Okay. Oppose? Okay, and myself. So then, this is
So can I make this suggestion
suggestion, okay?
that we table this till next meeting,
Table to next meeting.
in which case, in that case, we'd have 7.
Yeah,
Governance chair, is that allowed? Table it till next meeting.
Is the motion not defeated?
Yeah, and he wanted it to table. Because it's 3 and 3.
I would ask, is the motion not defeated? It does not have support by
Yes,
majority.
by majority.
When it's tied, it is defeated.
Okay. Then we don't need to table.
So I guess I would just add then, do we want to have it be defeated by a tie or table it till next meeting? In which case all 7 can be present.
No, Myra, so it's defeated, we just let it run until he can bring it back up with policy committee to relook at it on a different issue and bring it back. So right now on this amendment, then it's defeated. Okay, and then weakness will go back to the old. Right, we go back to the old, and that is when then, if you want to request to adjourn it, then we'll do that. Okay. All right, so the motion is defeated to the changes that was brought up. Okay. So we'll go back to the original motion then. And now you wanted to speak, trustee Leonard. Go ahead with your request now.
Okay, yeah, so I would request that we table this motion until next meeting.
Go ahead.
There is something that I'm trying to recall, and I can't exactly place it or look it up very quick enough. A motion that has been defeated has to, I'm pretty sure there's a timeline that you, or like a time period you have to wait before it can come back to the table. So I guess the suggestion would be, instead of tabling it for this specific reason of the amendment, it would need it to be amended down the road, passed or not in the presentation.
Let's get a clarification. Are you referring to our policy? Like
I
there's a
believe it's in policy.
policy that's suggested,
Yeah.
because in which case so if this were to pass, I wouldn't, as far as I'm aware with policy, I wouldn't be able to bring this up.
But
As long as a certain
Yes,
amount of
timelines,
time
yeah.
comes up.
If
But if we table it, I still could bring it up because it's still for discussion,
no, it's been
the amendment.
yeah, go ahead, Mr. Bishara.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My understanding is there's still a motion on the table right now.
Yes.
It's the original motion. If that's defeated, then it goes back to policy. It's my understanding. If it's approved, it's now in effect.
That's correct, Charlie, Mr. Bouchard.
So I think there needs to be a vote on the original
On the
motion,
original
and that's your
motion.
process by which you can defeat it or it gets passed. Is that
Okay, yeah. Thank you for that clarity. Okay, so we went back to the original motion, right? It's already on the floor. So we couldn't table that. So I'll call the question on the original motion. All in favor of the original motion that was presented? Show by hands. All in favor? Okay, opposed? All right. Oh.
Donna voted in favor,
In favor.
4-2.
So forth. So the motion on the floor is carried. So in the discussion there, and we'll have to look through that. How long till you can bring this back in the future, so we can look at it with your amendments, please?
My understanding, there's nothing in policy on that.
On that, okay, thank you for that clarity. All right, thank you all for your understanding and assistance to get this well organized. All right, policy 5.2. Appendix about the public forum. Can I have someone put that motion on the floor, please?
That the board give policy 7, appendix C, public forum, first and final reading as presented, and that the newly revised appendix now be in effect for the division.
Okay. We'll open it up for discussion, please. Any discussion on the appendix here? Okay, I see none. And I call the question, all in favor? Okay, carried. Thank you. 5.3. Now someone put that on the floor for us, please. Yeah, go ahead, Trustee Miller.
Thank you. I move that the board approve the 2024-2025 kindergarten calendars as presented.
Thank you. So you've seen the calendars. sure we don't go to school on Sundays, right? Okay. Have you noted any errors in the calendar dates and days? No, I'm sure administration as usual will come back with 1 or 2 days because we partner with a lot of divisions. That sometimes some changes do occur. Okay, all in favor? Okay, that is carried. To 5.4. Someone puts the motion on the floor for us, please. Oh, go ahead.
That the board approve the education plan as presented.
All right, and I will give this to Mr. Bouchard to share some highlights with us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So you have before you an education plan that is in year 2 of a 4-year term. You will see on the front document that the years are 23 through 27. Again, this is year 2. So many of these strategies that are in the plan, you will see year 2. There are 4-year plans behind the scenes that drive the strategies in this document. So there are many strategies, as you will note. The strategies consist of a combination of carry forward strategies that will be ongoing over the course of 4 years, as well as new strategies very specific to year 2 of the work that's to be done. There are a number of things that have been updated. I'll touch on a few of those. Population demographics are updated. The community consultation, which is proposed for February of next year, is also reflected in this document. There's updated budget information, capital plan information. But primarily, as you know, the goals are set for 4 years, so the plan speaks specifically to those works. I'll entertain any questions if there are any.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Any questions for Mr. Bouchard on the plans or the entire document? I know it's a big document. Okay, go ahead.
Just some notes, I guess, some highlights on it that I wanted to bring up. On my page 61, I don't know what page it is of the actual document. I just wanted to note that the sessions being held at the local parishes with the intent to strengthen the homeschool parish connections is an item that's noteworthy. I really appreciated seeing that in the document. And a question on D4 regarding learning supports on my page 80, regarding the new strategies in there. So I was just wondering.
Go to page 80, please.
Sorry. Board package, page 80. Domain 4. I just have quick notes, my apologies.
Okay, domain 4.
Just looking to gain some information and insight into what is new, what has been built on from past successes in this area.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So new in this area under school and division supports, so if we could go to the next page, please. Sorry, up a bit, sorry, the page prior. I think we're in the next goal there. So you're talking about access to supports and services, trustee?
Yes.
Keep going up, please. Okay, well, we'll just speak, maybe that's not the page that I think you're referring to. When I look at school division supports, what's new this year are family focused sessions and community connections for families with children in the PUF program. Implementing a planning resource to assist guardians with their child's transition from childhood to adulthood, as well as refining alternate programming frameworks for students with complex needs. Those are the strategies I would speak to specifically in that area, if that answers your question.
It does, thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. I think I figured out the way that I've written my notes. So on my page 71, I believe it's page 31 of the document. At the very top under secondary teachers is where I made the note regarding building vertical planning to address students' learning gaps. So my question has to do with around the new curriculum and the impact regarding this strategy. What has been changed this year and learned from last year to assist with this?
So when we mention secondary, we are not speaking of elementary teachers, which would speak to the new curriculum. So this is more for our junior, senior high teachers, where we're focusing on vertical planning. So I would say that's what that speaks to.
Can I alter my question to remove curriculum in that? And how is this impact, how is this strategy been changed from last year or learned from last year to assist building on it for this year?
Thank you. So some of the work of our directors and feedback from teachers has been that when students move from grade to grade, there are some big rocks, some essential learnings that are key that need to follow those students from one grade to the next. So it's important that teachers, I'll use an example of grades 7 and 8, that they're communicating with each other so that the teachers in grade 8 and grade 7 are working together and speaking to that. The other part of it is within the grade itself. There's the concept, I believe, Assistant Superintendent Cardinal has spoken about spiraling. So revisiting concepts that have been learned earlier in that student's education and revisiting those multiple times in their progression so that they're learning continuously and vertically. Have I covered that? Assistant Superintendent Cardinal.
All right, thank you. Any other question or comments? We'll move on to 5.5.
Do we need to?
Oh, sorry. Sorry, yeah. So we'll call the question now. All in favor? Okay, pass. All right, so the board is approved education plan. Wonderful. Okay, we'll go to 5.5. Our budget. Can I have someone put this on the floor for us, please? Okay, go ahead, Trustee Miller.
Thank you. I move that the board approve the budget for the 2024-25 school year as presented.
Thank you. And I'll hand this over to Mr. Secretary Treasurer to give us some highlights.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to present to you the budget for 2024-2025. And let's see. This was okay, and I want to present it in two parts. The first, I'll just show you the numbers and talk a little bit about them, but I'll actually present also the details that actually back up, that support the budget itself. So just a couple of pages that I want to draw your attention to. I want to draw your attention to this budgeted statement of operations, which is right. Here we actually notice that we are actually presenting to you the budgeted 2024-2025 compared to 23-24 budget, and also the audited accounts of 2022-2023. This is a template that is provided, and we should submit the budget to our better education. And we notice here that our revenue actually grew to 46.7 million, which is 6.9% increase when compared to the 2022-2023 audited financial position. And I also want to highlight that in total, we have the total budgeted revenue of 56.4 million, which is up by 3.3 million from the audited position as well. Most of the increase in the Government of Alberta revenue is actually driven by enrollment increase. I would say, and those will be backed up with the numbers that I will be showing you when it's compared with the budget, with the audited position. I also want to highlight that under our expenses, we also note that significant increase has realized under the instruction programs, where we actually see a 6.2% increase when compared to the budget position of 2022-2023. Also that is also in line with the changes, the impact of the enrollment increase as well. I also want to highlight that obviously the total expenses that we have 57 million. Obviously there is some inflationary pressures that are actually coming in there due to the high cost of supplies and also the high cost of utilities that we also see, and obviously we also see that there are some increases in the staffing costs that are within our budget of 2024-2025. And I'll just take you, and we also notice that we have got a deficit, the budgeted deficit of 100 million, and we actually see that this is really more to do with this program of operations and transportation, where we have got these deficits. And I'll actually give a little bit more detail in the other presentation. I just wanted to bring this to the fore before we actually go into the other detailed presentation. All right. Okay. The other pages on here are more statistical, and this other schedule of fees actually provides more breakdown of that revenue, then also the sales that we have. The other first pages also providing more information in terms of our operating reserves and capital reserves, and the staffing FTEs, and also the student FTEs. With your permission, Mr. Chairman, I would want to take you to the switch presentation.
But before you go into that switch over, I see Trustee Tao would have your hand. I
was just wondering if he'd be able to share the screen.
We can't hear you.
I was wondering if you would be able to share the screen. No, I'm not muted.
No, she's not muted.
Hear me now? No? I'm not muted. I can't share the screen. I can't see the screen.
We can't hear you.
I don't think she can hear us.
She can hear us.
See,
Yeah, she can hear us.
I can hear you, but not see.
Oh, she can hear us, but she can't see.
Can't see,
Oh,
share
she can
the
hear us,
screen.
she can see us.
Jean's not scared.
No.
Does she want to?
That's good.
She said something on the you can now. Yeah, what she's saying there, I can't read what
She wants her screen share.
All screen share.
oh, screen share, okay.
I don't think we're gonna let her screen share.
I actually want maybe to share the screen.
Stephanie says that she can hear Dawn on the live stream. It's interesting that we can't.
I put it on the chat
And we,
screen.
oh, she can hear on the back screen.
That's what she was asking for.
Yeah, okay, all right, okay, go ahead then.
Okay. All right, just wanted to highlight to you the new changes that are in the funding framework for 2024-2025. Restrictions on our operating reserves continue, and also restrictions on the boarding systems. Expense limit is established at 3.96%. As you may recall, 2023-2024, we are operating at 4.0. This limit is normally determined by our better education based on our enrollment levels. As our enrollment levels are increasing, so our restriction actually comes down. There are some changes in the eligibility of our outreach grant, which is actually fallen from $150,000 and comes down to $100,000. But there are some other criteria that they use. It's a standard one. We also have some changes in some programs where we now have the second account date of February the 3rd, and this is to do with SLS, PAF, and the transportation of ECS children with severe disability. We also note that the minister has actually reviewed the operating reserve limit to 6%, effective from 24-25 year, and also they've also removed. We're no longer required to seek ministerial approval for the usage of our reserves, and also to transfer to capital reserves. But however, the ministerial still retains authority over where we need to exceed that 6%. Okay. On the assumptions, we made a couple of assumptions here to do with inflation. Our projected numbers, I'll talk to them again, and the standard cost, I'll talk to them again. Just want to highlight to you the risks that we also face. And where, yeah, the inflation we projected at 2%, but yeah, it may not turn out to be, but so just take note of that, but otherwise we are projecting at 2% during that year. The division also may actually be required to support more students with less money should our actual enrollments exceed our projected numbers, which also provides some space challenges. And also, the inflation, if it doesn't come down, prices don't normally come down, they are normally sticky downwards. So we'll probably be experiencing those high costs as well. So I want to provide more the key data on headcount. Is that we actually noticed that our enrollment it's actually going to increase by 2.02% when we compare with the September 23 count. And we noticed that our enrollments are kind of over the 4 years, more or less at the same levels from ECS to grade 6, and also increasing from the other grades from grade 7 to grade 12. So those increases where we see Also certainly have an impact on the numbers in terms of our revenue and also in terms of our costs. The funding profile, I just want to give a little bit more information in terms of that. Based on our WMA, FTEs actually increased by 3.7% when compared to the 2023-2024. And we also see that our funding increased by 2.5%. Most of it is actually coming from the best instruction and the service support, which are actually basically driven by enrollment. We also see school operations is kind of level, if not it has actually come down, despite the increases in the costs that we were talking about to do with the operation and maintenance. And this funding is actually driven by space, especially mainly driven by space. We also see that there is a significant decline in our community, in our community bucket, which is as a result of some changes in terms of the index that is assigned to our division from last year to this year regarding the rurality of our division. So there has been a decrease in the index, therefore the funding also declined.
And that is with respect to the taxation area. Not with the taxation as such. It's just I think we are becoming more urban than rural. So obviously then that affects our index. Okay. Okay, then I want to, on the certified staff members, we actually see that there is a 5% FTE increase in 2020 over 2023-2024 staffing. However, if we were to compare with the audited 2022-2023, we actually see that there is an increase of over 6.5% in terms of on the standard costs per teacher. We also see that there is an increase of 26 FTEs, which is 11.2% of the school-based certified staff. That is when compared with the audited period of 2020 to 2023 year. Understaffing costs. We also see that we have a 0.9% increase in total staffing levels per se when compared with 2020-2024. Our standard cost as such also increased by 2.2% from last year, and 1% increase in FTEs as well. But if we were to compare with the audited period, which is also a comparative number that is in the budget templates that we are providing to the ministry, we actually see that the standard cost increases by 5.4%, whilst the FTEs for our support staff increased by 16.25%. Okay. All right. Just an analysis of our revenue by category, where we have a total revenue of 56.4 million, and we actually note that see the color is not very clear, so it is. Okay, and our funding is primarily driven by our enrollments, and we certainly expect that there will be an increase in our enrollments, and therefore there will be some supplemental enrollment growth funding that will come. And also just to highlight that we, as we allocated the funds, we also allocated $60,000 towards schools to allow them to plan better. That is 60,000 of our supplementary enrollment growth funding. So we allocated already 60,000. And we also see that 47,000 of this
47 million, sorry, of this 56, which is about 83.9%, is funding that it actually comes from our data education. Okay. Transportation funding is also based on the, it's projected that it will be funded on the new model, on the new model. I think there has been discussion that we have already been approved of about 1.2 million funding for this school year. That is to do with the Geelong principle. Just to highlight that our expenses by program, that 77% of our instructional costs relate, 77% of our total costs relate to instructional costs, which actually gives us a total of about our total expenses are about 57.4 million, and 77% of that it relates to instructional costs, and which is actually epitomised by these graphs, as we can see, that instructional program actually has got a significant amount over the 3 years that we are showing the most O&M accounts for 14%. We further broke down the instructional spending. And the total instructional spending is indicated as 44.3 million. And we note that when we calculate cost per student, it actually increased by 6.3%, that is to 9,200. And we just also want to highlight that the board approved 170,000 from operating reserves to support schools which actually had a declining enrollment, and that certainly was appreciated by the schools when it was allocated. And thank you, Mr. Chair. We also want to note that the board also reviewed some support staff salaries and benefits, and that actually you can actually see that the instructional funding in terms of certified staff accounts for about 72%, whilst uncertified 17%. Services accounting for the balance. Operational and maintenance spending, we have broken it down into a number of into the different areas that that are supported by the division, the department, and significant of it is actually certainly to do with the amortization of the buildings, which actually stood at about 2.4 million. And also the custodial maintenance staff of 25%, whilst we actually have just want to highlight that when it comes to utilities, we actually found that we actually saw that our utilities, and which we actually increased them by, is that over the last year, there are utilities compared to the 2023-2024 budget, we actually increased on average on the utilities alone about 20%. You may also recall that we presented to you for information some agreement that we entered into to do with the electricity agreement, and those costs that we actually have, we've actually also adapted them to that particular agreement. But however, is for 2024-25, we will not see a lot of benefit from that agreement. The benefit will arise thereafter, because that agreement sets in at the beginning of the school year. Therefore, the benefit will really come in the following year. Okay, on the transportation program spending, I just wanted to indicate that the total spending budget of 1.8 million against 1.6 million revenue. And we also wanted to highlight that most of this spending is 94% of it is relates to the contracts, busing contracts. And of these busing contracts, on average, we actually have had about 4 contractors whose contracts were up this June, and therefore we needed to renew them when we have renewed them. And however, there is an average of about 5% increase in the busing rates. And we should actually be very thankful that we had with good hindsight, we actually had 3-year contracts in the past, which carried us over the highest inflationary period, where we did not, where we actually cushioned from significant increases that have been witnessed in the busing industry.
Good question. So we say that 200,000 between the 1.8 and 1.6, if you will account for some of that contract increments.
Yes, the contracts certainly account for the increase. Actually, is accounted for in that 221 million deficit that we have. What I also wanted to maybe just to highlight under transportation is that obviously we, whilst the routes that we currently have, we've actually costed all of them, and that some of them relate to where parents have been paying school fees, and some of those routes will be, or some of those students will be accounted for in the new model. So whilst the costs are included in the new in the budget, we have not been able to include the revenue because we couldn't estimate it with certainty. Therefore, we'd rather wait until when we actually got into the beginning of the school year, when we know our numbers, and we can always adjust on that basis. On the system admin spending, we are working with a budget of 2.2 million, and as you can see, most of 51% of it relates to us and certified staff, and whilst 22% goes to supplies and services. We also have 23% of certified staff, that is the certified staff that are based here at central office. Just want to highlight the governance budget accounts for 14%, that is almost 2.2 million. I also wanted to highlight, based on the 2.2 million spending that we have, it accounts for 3.8% of total expenses, whilst the limit that is provided for us by our education is 2.96. So we have a little bit of some room in that respect, that at least we are under the 3.96% limit. But the 3.8 certainly is limited by the amount that we receive from Mount-Vera Education in terms of revenue. On the reserves, 31 August 2025, we projected that our reserves balance of operating will be about 1.8 million. Also, capital will be at 2.6. We noticed that there is about 600 million that will be down by, and really more of it relates to the deficit that we have, and deficit that we are budgeting for, and therefore that's why our operating reserves are actually reduced to about 1.8 million. Okay, and based on the new cap, we actually have our operating reserves at 3.4 million. That is based on the 6% that I highlighted earlier on, whilst currently our limit is at 2.1 million in 2024. And Mr. Chairman, that's the presentation that I have for you, and we can listen to answers.
Okay. That's a lot of numbers you've seen and heard about. Some from the federal government, from the provincial government, and now we are managing and spending it according to what we have. Any questions to that one?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nick, 170,000 was given to declining enrollment. Did you say to certain schools? How many schools? Or do you know?
Yeah, I think we had about 6 schools that had declining enrollment, or they were at the same level. Okay, but however, because of the allocation model, their allocation or budget was actually reduced because the schools that actually had increasing enrollment had a pulling effect on the budget itself. Therefore, it had a pulling effect to them whilst taking away from those that had declining enrollment and those that had stable enrollment. And the board, then administration came to the board requesting for allocation of that 170, and we are happy that the board actually approved that.
Thank you.
Any other question? Yeah, go ahead.
So we had about 6% increase in government funding. And then expenses by program. Instructional cost increased 2%. Operations and maintenance decreased 2%. Transportation and system administration maintained the same. Last year, we were projecting around a $1 million deficit. And then this year, again, we're projecting a $1 million deficit. I'm just wondering what is the major expense, I guess, this year that's come up, or is, I don't know, those numbers don't balance in my head.
Okay. What I would mention is that when you look at I'll take you on to this one instead. We see that we have a deficit in our operations and maintenance because the operations, the cost themselves for our operations they are actually more than the funding that we receive. I think that's the key driving aspect in terms of our maintenance. So what we end up sometimes doing is that we won't be able to implement all the maintenance that we want to do. And we tend to then carry them forward, hoping that at some point in time, the government will probably provide us some bullets or funding for capital maintenance, which will then be deployed to that area. Similarly, on the transportation, the cost of operating our bus units is actually more than the funding that we are receiving. But however, as I indicated earlier on, that in this transportation revenue, we did not, this is based on the allocation that we are receiving from the education as per the funding money. But we did not want to estimate how much we will be receiving based on the new model. Therefore, we expect that this deficit will not be as high as 220. If at all.
Thank you. That clarifies for you? Okay. All right. I see no further question on it. Okay. Secretary, Financial Secretary again. We will then, there are no questions, we'll call the question then. Okay. All in favor of passing the budget? Aye. Okay, carried. Okay, you're welcome. So then we did have an addition 5.6. To hire an advocacy consultant. So I will ask Trustee Sarah to put that motion up, please.
Sure. I move that the board hire a strategic consultant to assist with the advocacy of the Beaumont Catholic High School to the amount of $10,000.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor. And I'll open it up for debate. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Thank
Speak to the motion.
Well, the Beaumont High School, Catholic High School has been our #1 priority on the capital plan for many years. And even though we've done a lot of advocacy, I think that we need a new strategy. And the idea of hiring a strategic consultant to help us could be effective. I think we need to take a new direction.
Thank you for those words. Okay, any other comments or speak on there? No. Okay. There are no any further questions. We'll call a question then. All in favor of the motion on the floor? Show of hands. Okay, that is now carried. All right. So, yeah, so let's take 10 minutes. Then we'll go into our committee reports. Another meeting. Thank you. Screen, yeah, yeah, that's for.
Can you hear me now?